Come on!
Oh my God, Trump was elected. Hell is going to rise up from the deep, dark depths of the earth, and it's going to come to the surface, and it's going to be an ocean of flame and fire, and it's going to burn the flesh off of our bones until we're crying out in an immutable agony that goes on for eternity, and it's going to be nothing but suffering and pain and chaos and sadness and death. All people will be separated, loved ones will be torn from loved ones, parents will be torn from children, everything will be racist, an awful boiling pot of destruction. Gay people will be put into sordid, dark prisons. Their eyes will be blinded to the light of the sun. The blue sky will turn black. The black night sky with its bright stars will turn even more black. The sun will spin off its axis. The earth will tumble away from all good and all light. The moon will crumble and its pieces will come to earth in meteors and asteroids, and it will set us all alight until before we know it, all beauty, all tranquility, all serenity, all joy, all will be eclipsed, all will be faded into nothingness until all that is left is suffering and sadness and pain. Or not. Maybe none of that's going to happen and everything's going to be fine.
Come on!
We make it possible for them to sell their oil. Why aren't they paying us 25% of what they're making? It's a joke.
This sounds like political presidential talk to me, and I know people have talked to you about whether or not you want to run. Would you ever?
Probably not, but I do get tired of seeing what's happening with this country, and if it got so bad, I would never want to rule it out totally.
Now, Trump's been under something of a media firing squad for the past year or so, but since he is now President of the United States, let's dig a little deeper to determine if he really is as bad as these people say he is. Number one, calling Trump a misogynist is indisputably a harsh claim. And if we look at his history, he was married to Ivana Zelnikova for 13 years. And after they got divorced, he gave Ivana $25 million.
During the Ivana divorce case, I saw you as a victim. You fell out of love with Ivana. Okay, you did a very honorable thing. You paid her $25 million for a divorce settlement.
That's true.
That's a lot of money.
A lot of money.
The time you were in financial trouble.
The deepest trouble of my life, absolutely.
Were you truly in financial trouble?
Deep, deep trouble.
And he didn't have to give her any money because she actually signed a prenuptial agreement.
By the way, you had gotten her to sign a prenuptial agreement,
That is correct.
He did have an affair towards the end of their marriage, but he ended up marrying the woman he was having an affair with. So she clearly meant more to him than just some old floozy. Now, going back to his ex-wife, despite their divorce, they still claim to be very close friends. So much so that in 2008, Donald Trump actually hosted the wedding to Ivana Zelnikova's recent husband.
No one's known Donald as well as Ivana has, and for as long as she's known him. She's perhaps his oldest, dearest friend.
She also says he's not a misogynist. I don't think he's a feminist. He loves women, but not a feminist.
So if he was really a misogynist, why would his ex-wife of 13 years still be such close friends with him? His second marriage to the upbeat southerner Marla Maples only lasted 6 years, but it produced one child, and to this day, Marla hasn't said a negative word about Donald Trump.
Marla and I go back, right?
Way back.
I was at your wedding to Donald Trump.
Just yesterday.
Yeah, it seems like yesterday, doesn't it?
It was a very big, important part of my life. I still love Donald. I love Eric and Ivanka and Donnie.
You were so in love with him, Marla. No. Marla, you were madly in love with him. I saw the headlines.
Yeah. Well,
was it love or his hands? Tell the truth.
By the way, his hands are great. I do not understand all this talk.
Granted, it did end in divorce, so it can't have been all peaches and cream, but come on, Trump isn't the only celebrity to have his marriages go down the pan. George, you might be thinking. What about all those other broads Trump slept with? Well, okay, sure. When not walking down the aisle and during his hedonistic bachelor days, the Donald notoriously played the field and had his fair share of sexy women. And maybe your share too. But do you know how many men would do the same thing he did? Pretty much all of them.
What are you doing here? You gotta be out in a convertible, bird dogging chicks and banging beaver. What are you doing here, for Christ's sake?
And sorry to state the obvious here, but if a multiple billionaire male celebrity didn't have sex with multiple women, that would be far more strange. But George, you might be thinking, fair enough about the marriage and the flings and all that, but what about the actual women he abused? Which women are they? The women who the mainstream media claimed were assaulted, all of which were debunked?
There are problems with her account. The fact that she dated him afterwards. She wrote very, very nice emails to him after the fact.
The New York Times, this is a quote from the article. Donald J. Trump had barely met Roanne Brewer Lane when he asked her to change out of her clothes. True or false?
False.
You dated him for several months?
That's correct. Yes. He was very kind, thoughtful, generous. He was a gentleman.
But on this subject, if you want some very real and very bizarre forms of sexism, check out Joe Biden, the former Secretary of State.
There's nothing pervy here. The VP knows he's on camera at these swearing-in ceremonies, and the parents are right there as he leans in for a kiss. The VP is known as a close talker. He even does it to the president. Perhaps his most famous hands-on moment came when he put his hands on the wife of Defense Secretary Ash Carter.
I've got a lot of thanks to give out.
What is he doing, man? It's like he needs counselling. Oh, and how about Hillary, who defended the rape of a 12-year-old girl? 'Cause that's pretty misogynistic so far as I'm concerned.
And then when she heard the tape of Hillary Clinton laughing about her attacker's guilt, she decided that she just couldn't take it anymore and she wanted to put her side of the story out in the public.
It took a lie detector test. I had the polygraph. When she passed, forever destroyed my faith in polygraphs.
Now, I can appreciate that when Hillary defended the known rapist, she was officially just doing her job. But this isn't the only case of supposed misogyny from Hillary Clinton. Let's not forget about the women who she's said to have abused, having forced them to stay quiet about their shady encounters with Bill.
Rape, physical assault, sexual assault, sexual harassment. I want to say this to the mainstream media, Andrea Mitchell, Jake Tapper, all of these people. These are not infidelities.
No.
A rape is not an infidelity. She's got a lot of nerve over the years.
And all the stuff that
the worst.
Bill Clinton has done, and she's defended him, she's accepted it, she's covered it up for him.
But George, you might be thinking, so maybe there isn't much evidence that Trump is a misogynist. He's basically just a bit of a player who had 2 unsuccessful marriages before his recent one in 2005. But how about the fact that he's a fucking racist? Well, Trump has only ever said that he wanted illegals to go home and get legal documents. Then he said they can all come back in.
Oh, Don, you're a little controversial. You're talking about illegal immigration. I said it's illegal.
And as for his talk of building a wall, the media has shown this story countless times.
We need to build a wall.
But they very often choose to cut this part.
And I don't mind having a big, beautiful door in that wall so that people can come into this country legally.
Also, regarding the fact that Trump is against opening American borders even further, I do wonder why, other than the cultural unrest that's taken place in major American cities like this.
I hate gay people. I hate gay people.
But don't get me wrong, I know that America is officially stolen land anyway, and pretty much everyone living in America is technically an immigrant, and though I'm not in favour of building walls around any country, it doesn't change the fact that Trump's desire to tighten borders and have a stricter screening program still cannot be categorised as racist.
First of all, I've known Donald before he became the Donald, and Donald is not a racist. Now, I hate to tell people, just because you build a wall doesn't mean you're a racist.
Also, do you remember Mike Tyson? You know, the big boxer fellow. Well, a long time ago, when he was being accused of rape, a case that put him in jail for 6 years and has now been largely debunked, especially since the girl who accused Tyson also accused her previous boyfriend of rape for religious reasons.
Why, and I use an obscenity, could you accuse me of rape? That's such a big word that can really ruin a person. And she replied as, I had to say something to cover myself because you know what my father would do. After the sex, she was she went to the bathroom, and when she came out of the bathroom, she was coming out crying, very scared, and she kept on saying to me that sex before marriage was against her religion and her father was going to kill her.
Should the jury have heard that?
Of course the jury should have heard it.
Looking back, do you think Mike Tyson had a fair trial?
Looking back, no, I think his representation was very poor.
Well, anyway, despite that whole media furore, guess who stuck his neck out to defend Mike Tyson? Yeah, Trump. Donald Trump was the only person in show business who actually got involved and said he believed Mike Tyson was possibly innocent.
You came out in defense of Mike Tyson.
I watched what happened to Mike Tyson. I watched how badly he was represented. But I did see that, number one, she knocks late in the night. Number two, she's dancing in a beauty contest at 8 in the morning, and I saw the tapes, and I see the big smile on her face, and she's dancing happily at 8 in the morning. And now Mike Tyson's in jail for 4 or 5 or 6 years. I had a real problem with that case.
Trump even went against his own mother's wishes when he said that.
So it is said that your mother said, enough, Donald,
I
shut
think
up.
That's probably the first time my mother absolutely got angry at me. I really mean that. I mean, my mother was so crazy when I came out in defense of Mike Tyson.
Now consider, if Trump was actually racist, why on earth would he defend Tyson? A racist person would surely say, a black boxer accused of rape? He must be guilty, and they sure as hell wouldn't get involved.
What are your thoughts on him today? You know, do you think that he's going to be a
president
great...
of the United States? He should be president of the United States. That's what he should be. He should be president of the United States.
Now, how's this for a factoid? Check out this quote. I used to be cruel to my woman, and physically, any woman. I was a hitter. I couldn't express myself, and I hit. I fought men, and I hit women. You know who said that? John Lennon. Yeah, the Beatle who sang songs about peace and love and that. He left his first wife and his child to become successful, and later openly discussed his previous history with women. But hey, no problem, right? He's John Lennon. He writes great songs, so no one cares if he used to be a misogynist. Talk about double standard.
I've had enough of reading things by neurotic, psychotic, pig-headed politicians. All I want is the truth. Just give me some truth.
Anyway, despite that, How's this for a supposedly clever internet meme?
If you get to not care that Trump is a sexual predator, I get to not care about emails.
Right. That's a bit like saying, if you get to say that it's okay for this man to love women, then I get to say it's okay for this woman to be in cahoots with the mainstream media so she can carry out an illegal agenda and break international law to begin another war for profit. Yeah, good one. I like how you related those two completely unrelated topics. But anyway, since we were talking about emails, has anyone actually read the Hillary Clinton emails? Because in one of them, she refers to black people as professional never-do-wells, and plainly states that some groups of people are almost always highly successful given only half a chance, while others, Muslims and blacks for instance, fare badly almost irrespective of circumstances. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty fucking racist to me. When it came to Hillary's emails, the mainstream media said this.
It's illegal to possess these stolen documents. It's different for the media. So everything you learn about this, you're learning from us.
You what? So these emails might contain incriminating evidence that will affect how we feel about the next potential president, a woman who will affect the lives of not just Americans, but people all over the world, yet we are not allowed to look at those emails, but you are, because you're a television journalist. Not an FBI agent, not a member of the CIA or the Secret Service, but a TV journalist. Fair enough. Okay, I'll abide. But only if you promise to not cut transmission if one of your guests happens to bring up negative evidence against Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton's a liar. She can't be trusted. And now the two faces of Hillary Clinton are coming out. The fact through WikiLeaks that she says one thing and... Oh, no.
It was Hillary Clinton that she should get an award from them as the founder of ISIS. That's what it...
Because of her support in the 1990s for anti-crime legislation that ultimately helped contribute to this era of mass incarceration that she now speaks out again.
We just lost Breonna Keeler.
Well, trusty news media, I'll give you one more chance. I'll promise to trust you if you promise not to cut transmission from any Trump supporter who happens to be black.
David Duke and people like that, they come out from under the rocks all the time around this time this year. It got nothing to do with Donald Trump. We're all Americans. I think we need to stop with all the racist stuff and the race baiting. Like me and my friend right here, we just met today, we was talking. You know, we got to stop with the racist stuff and this, that. We all Americans, man. And nobody paying David Duke no mind.
Clearly, let me just be clear here. Obviously, the majority of Donald Trump supporters are not African American. I don't know how many African Americans were in that building, but that is one person that we have chosen to cut that sound from.
Did she actually just say that?
That is one person that we have chosen to cut that sound from. Obviously, the majority of Donald Trump supporters are not African American.
Oh, thanks for telling us, you very clearly non-biased television network. But on a lighter note, since CNN don't want to show any African-American Trump supporters, I will.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
To every parent who dreams for their children, and to every child who dreams for their future, I say these words to you tonight. I'm with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you.
I get a chance to watch. I think he's amazing.
Donald Trump is what Americans love. Donald Trump is what Americans
aspire to be. You know, that's his appeal to me.
What we were able to do today was allow people to see his heart for themselves and to make up their own minds about him. And they find out that he's not the person that the media has depicted him to be.
Are you endorsing it?
I support Donald Trump, and everybody knows 100%.
And this is going to be our next president of these United States! Yes! Yes!
But George, you might be thinking, do you remember that racist moron who shouted abuse at that black man in a car? What? This guy?
Black lives do not matter because black people walk around and say it. It doesn't mean anything. Right. I can walk around and say Elvis is still alive. Does that mean he's still alive? No. You have to prove something with your life for once. You have to prove something, buddy. Oh, okay. Go out and do that.
I appreciate you so much.
Yeah, you fucking transgender faggot.
That's exactly why y'all need to get out and vote.
Yeah. He was a Trump supporter. That means Trump supporters are racist too. Right. So basically, this video gets spread around news and social media like wildfire and is apparently proof that Trump and his supporters are racist. Makes sense. But when Donald Trump's Hollywood star is vandalized by Hillary supporters and a female homeless black Trump supporter sits down to protect it, and then she is not only abused by an entire mob, a mob who refused to help the poor woman.
Didn't I tell you about 5 minutes ago that somebody is going to walk by here and no, I would not defend you? Didn't I?
Donald Trump to say you now.
Well, that's not racist at all. In fact, that's not even an important enough news story for fair and open news corporation CNN to spread it. Now, just a moment. Can you imagine if this black woman had been a Hillary supporter? Because if a group of Trump fans had assaulted a black Hillary supporter, you can be damn sure that this story would have been everywhere. Instead, mainstream media opted to just kind of ignore this one. But mainstream media did love to bring up the fact that an ex-Ku Klux Klan member had tweeted in support of Trump, a Ku Klux Klan member who Donald Trump had not only never met, but never even heard of.
Will you unequivocally condemn David Duke and say that you don't want his vote or that of other white supremacists in this election?
Well, just so you understand, I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know, did he endorse me or what's going on? Because, you know, I know nothing about David Duke. I know nothing about white supremacists. And so you're asking me a question that I'm supposed to be talking about people that I know nothing about.
David Duke and people like that, they come out from under the rocks all the time around this time this year. It got nothing to do with Donald Trump.
Yet, on the subject of the KKK, the news media didn't think it was all that relevant to bring up the fact that Hillary Clinton's mentor, Robert Byrd, was the founding member and leader of a chapter of the Ku Klux Klan.
Today, our country has lost a true American original, my friend and mentor, Robert C. Byrd.
Her fucking mentor! But George, are you saying the mainstream media is full of shit? Yeah. And you know what else the mainstream media would have loved to have put everywhere? Clinton's success. No. I don't mean that if she had won the election. I mean that if she was really as popular as they said she was, and if her rallies were filling stadiums, you can be sure that those pictures would have been broadcast around the net and the news. However, Hillary wasn't filling stadiums whilst Donald Trump was. Now, if the media wasn't biased in Hillary's favour, why not show the actual situation?
Like, for instance, these cameras back here right now, they will never show this crowd.
But I want the cameras to span the room. Go ahead, fellas, watch. They don't turn them. They don't turn them. They don't turn them. Go ahead, turn them.
Turn it. Spin it. Spin the camera.
Look, turn the camera. Go ahead.
Why aren't you turning that camera? Why aren't you turning the camera?
Terrible.
Hillary was being greeted in most states like a politician, whilst Trump was being greeted like a rock star. In a world of honest journalism, you'd think that might have been a story worth mentioning. But George, you might be thinking, Obama was great and he supported Hillary Clinton. Well, that's true. Obama did support Hillary Clinton, apart from when he was running against her.
I just have to remind people of the track record. If you want someone with a lifelong track record. So now this is Senator Clinton. This is the same person who has taken more money from lobbyists than any other candidate, Democratic or Republican, of fighting for higher wages and better benefits and a fairer tax code and a bigger voice for workers and stronger regulations on Wall Street. This is the same person who took money from financial folks on Wall Street and then voted for a bankruptcy bill that makes it harder for folks right here.
And also, was Obama really that great? I mean, he promised to immediately get troops out of Iraq, even though there are thousands of troops still there, 8 years later, and he promised to shut down Guantanamo Bay, which is still open 24 hours a day. But George, you might be thinking, Obama had such a nice family. There were no scandals or nothing. Look at them. They're so wholesome. They're like the Waltons. Well, you know what? My neighbours are a nice family. That doesn't mean they should be in the fucking White House. At the end of the day, being president is a job. People don't ask footballers, "Oi mate, do you come from a nice family? Because if you do, you can come and play for us." Alright George, you might be thinking. Fair enough, but how about the fact that Trump is seen favourably by Putin? That's just awful. No. Actually, that's not awful. You see, if Trump is peaceful with Putin, and therefore peaceful with Russia, that means America won't go to war with Russia, which, how can you argue, is anything other.
I'd also like to congratulate Mr. Donald Trump with his victory in these elections. And he spoke about resuming and restoring relations between Russia and the United States.
Now, Hillary Clinton, you may or may not know, was being funded by all but one of the major US arms industries.
She was the only candidate that among her financial backers included all but one of the 10 leading arms manufacturers in the world.
Oh, and as for that no-fly zone she wanted so bad, getting that would have meant sending in 100,000 troops.
So when I was Secretary of State, advocated, and I advocate today, a no-fly zone.
I believe that a no-fly zone in Syria at this time, actually, Secretary, would be a mistake.
She is talking about, as I understand it, a no-fly zone in Syria, which I think is a very dangerous situation.
Right now, Senator, for us to control all of the airspace in Syria would require us to go to war against Syria and Russia.
So Trump making peace with Putin is good. It will prevent war.
Russia is ready and wants to restore the full-fledged relations with the United States.
Fair enough, George, you might be thinking. But how about the fact that Trump is homophobic? Says who? I mean, he was waving an LGBT flag before one of his rallies, and he has said that same-sex marriage is a law he's fine with, and he isn't going to change that law.
One of the groups that's expressing fear, the LGBTQ group,
And yet I mentioned them at the Republican National Convention. You know, I've been a supporter.
Well, I guess the issue for them is marriage equality.
It's irrelevant because it was already settled. It's law. It was settled in the Supreme Court. I mean, it's done.
So even if you appoint a judge that...
It's done. You have, these cases have gone to the Supreme Court. They've been settled. And I think I'm fine with that.
Do you think your erstwhile boss, Steve Bannon, chairman of Breitbart and now Trump's chief strategist, do you think he has horribly regressive attitudes. He's been described by some liberals an anti-Semite, a white nationalist. Have they got that wrong?
Well, Breitbart is a company staffed almost entirely by Jews. I am a gay Jew, and he made me into a star. He, flew over from America to hire Raheem Kassam to run the London office, who is a, brown-skinned Muslim. This stuff is ridiculous.
So nothing's gonna happen to gay people in America. But George, you might be thinking, this means that Trump isn't racist, he's not a misogynist, he's not homophobic, and he's not going to start a war. Fair enough, mate. But how about this? All he really cares about is money. Well, Trump has confirmed that he will only be accepting $1 a year to be President of the United States, turning down the $400,000 a year salary. Also, his wealth allowed him to fund his own campaign, meaning that he cannot be bribed by people like, oh, I don't know, the arms industry. But George, you might be thinking, since Trump won, America has become divided. Actually, the American people are exactly the same this week as they were last week and the week before that. Two people switching chairs doesn't instantly make half a country into racist misogynists. And let's look at the bigger picture here. There are currently 318 million people living in America. There have been around 10 alleged cases of potential racism since the election. Few of those cases even verified, and most of them are cases like, oh, a boy tried to take off a girl's hijab at school. Wow. Something tells me that wouldn't have been considered newsworthy before the election. And honestly, though racism is a shitty thing, we're talking about around 10 cases in 318.9 million people. If you were to empty a few bags of sugar onto a table and 10 grains of sugar amongst that mountain were bad grains, you'd barely notice them, would you? Not unless someone drew attention to them and kicked up an enormous fuss about them, sort of like the mainstream media did, making things out to be far worse than they actually are. And for more proof that America has not been secretly racist all along, the majority of America voted for Obama. Twice! But George, you might be thinking, why did Trump get elected? Why? Mostly because people are fucking jobless and poor. 60 years ago, a man could buy a house and a few cars and support his wife and family on a factory wage. Whilst nowadays, a married couple both working full-time struggle to pay rent. It isn't the rich and successful who voted for Trump, it's the poor and struggling. The fact that Trump won proves that most of America is not rich and successful, even if Bernie Sanders thinks they are.
When you're white, you don't know what it's like to be living in a ghetto. You don't know what it's like to be poor.
Bernie? Where are you getting your facts from, mate? Especially considering that America's poorest counties are 95% white. When you're white, you don't gotta worry about money. I'm white, and I got hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank. Does he think the world is like that Eddie Murphy sketch on Saturday Night Live, where Eddie Murphy dressed up as a white guy and suddenly got all sorts of shit for free?
So I decided to go underground and actually experience America as a white man.
Now, let me get this straight, Mr. White. You'd like to borrow $50,000 from our bank, but you have no collateral, you have no credit, you don't even have any ID. Is that correct?
That's right.
I'm sorry. This is not a charity. This is a business.
Harry, why don't you take your break now?
Okay. Thanks, Bob.
That was a close one, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
We don't have to bother with these formalities, do we, Mr. White? Just take what you want, Mr. White. Pay us back any time, or don't. We don't care.
It ain't like that, Bernie. People are piss poor. Anyway, if everyone in America was rich, there wouldn't be any need for Donald Trump. But now that he's here, will he fulfill his promises? Will he make America great again? I don't know. Nobody knows. But I do happen to know this. America is made up of many, many people. It is not just the views or ideals of one man. So if America wants to be a prosperous, moral and understanding country with steadfast values and positive intentions for all, then it is up to the masses. Donald Trump, despite his new and powerful position, is still just one man in 318 million. You cannot blame him for everything that might go wrong. Seriously, America, you're called the United States. So unite, come together, stop these ludicrous and unnecessary protests and come together for any hope of America being great. And I say that not as an outsider, but an American citizen. Yeah, check it. So I consider it my responsibility and the responsibility of every other American too to make America great. As for my own views on Donald Trump, I hope that he will be a great president, one who goes down in history for overthrowing an antiquated political establishment with something far more up to date, using his decades of business expertise to carve out a brighter future for the United States of America. Hopefully.
What Donald Trump is saying, look, his best answer is, I want to bring jobs. Let me do it for you. Best debate line, Democrats care about the inner city when it's election time. After election time, what do you get? Zero. What was her response? Quiet. Why? Because that is the truth. He told the unadulterated truth. And even though people don't want to hear the truth is bitter, but we have to swallow it. The Democratic Party, I voted for over 20 years of my life. I voted for Barack Obama when he said he was going to bring hope and change. And yes, we can. And no, we didn't. The jobs didn't come. The better schools didn't come. The investment in our communities did not come. National security, our borders are open. We're not safe. We're not safe. And we've got to stop thinking as black and white and purple and Arab. We've got to start thinking as Americans. And that's what Donald Trump is saying. We're Americans. America first.
I say it's great to be an American.
I agree.
But George, what about all that stuff about grabbing women by the pussy?
The USA in your Chevrolet, America's asking you to call. Drive your Chevrolet through the USA, America's the greatest land of all. On a highway or a road along a levee, performance is sweeter, nothing can beat her. Life is completer in a Chevy, so make a date today to see the USA and see it.